Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
Some controversy in North Texas as the media got a hold of a memo in which the doctors are basically saying that if they start running out of intensive care beds, ICU beds in North Texas, they'll start prioritizing the vaccinated against COVID-19 over the unvaccinated when making choices as to who should get a bed. Todd Furniss is on the line to talk to me about it. He's the author of the new book, The 60% Solution, Rethinking Healthcare. And Todd, first of all, welcome to Iowa Radio. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, too. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Todd, as you're rethinking the healthcare system, is this shocking news for you that basically the doctors there in North Texas are making a values judgment as to who should get an ICU bed? What do you think of all this?
No, I think it's a terrible turn of events. And what worries me is that now this may take an array of manifesting itself in the way that protocols are anchored for our hospital systems and our insurance companies. So right now you're saying, okay, doctors are making a decision. Now what happens, though, if the administration of a hospital says, you know what, this is the way we're going to do things, or worse yet, if an insurance company says we're only going to pay the hospital bills for those who've been vaccinated. And by the way, we're also simultaneously going to increase the cost of insurance for those who have not been vaccinated. So to me, one of the problems we have in the American healthcare system is the fact that we have all of these different stakeholder interests, none of which are necessarily the stakeholder interests of the individual seeking to get healthcare services, but rather the state government, the federal government, the insurance companies, the hospital system. All of them have different interests, and your health is not always the priority.
Well, and Todd, that's been really the issue for a lot of my listeners as we've gone through this pandemic. There's been so much manipulation of people's behavior. And, I just think it's part of American culture to push back on that when you're trying to be forced to do something. Yet we see our leaders and our healthcare officials doing that more and more and more and more. Ultimately, Todd, doesn't this cause people's health to suffer because we naturally push back on trying to be forced to do something?
Well, I think that's human nature, absolutely. And what I'm worried about is and I'm using the term you correctly, I certainly agree with you as pointing out, which is the cultural implication of this. In other words, the cultural manifestation of this idea that you have to get vaccinated or else causes, on the one hand, people to react negatively and say, well, I'm not sure I want to do that. But also it has all sorts of other implications. It has economic implications, it has health implications, it has legal implications. And those implications are not only insidious, but they're also far-reaching. So I worry about this greatly because what we've done is we've taken this disease, as many people have commented in the past, and we not only politicized it, but we've used that politicization in a way that just really informs every aspect of the human experience in the United States.
So, Todd, let's take a step back because you're right. How we're shaping what healthcare looks like in the future is really being shaped by what we're seeing right now during this pandemic. But Todd, you are talking about rethinking healthcare. If we could just take a deep breath for a moment and take a look at our healthcare system in Iowa and across the country, how should we be rethinking healthcare?
Well, the first thing we ought to do is we ought to be a lot more proactive as individuals with our own health care. We ought to be taking steps to be measured and preventative, of course. But and that means three simple things that your mom told you when you were growing up, right? Eat well, sleep well, and go out and play. Get some exercise. Second thing we need to do is we really need to have more consumerism in healthcare. Right now, we've gone to this space in the American healthcare system where everybody's insured, and if you're not insured, you're in trouble. What we ought to have is a bunch of policies and encouragement for people to pay for stuff directly. Most people don't even hit their deductible now anyway. But if we could reduce the cost of care, meaning everything but major medical, then that would allow us to have the economic strength to go do what we need to do. And we could reduce price dramatically. I mean, quick example, somebody read my book and they said, hey, I needed an MRI. The MRI was $3,200. The radiologist report was another $800, and her deductible was $3,000. So she's going to pay $3,000, and the insurance company's only going to cover whatever's left. She read my book and she said, hey, what happens if I negotiate this and pay cash? And the answer was $562 for everything. So that consumerism is what really should empower the model to allow us to have more affordable health care and available to more people in the United States. And the last thing we need to do is we need to get all the regulators, whether I call them government regulators, which is state, local, and federal, and what I call commercial regulators, which are the insurance companies who are dictating what healthcare really does and how it's delivered by virtue of their willingness or unwillingness to pay for something. And so that creates economic stakeholders in everybody who's delivering healthcare today.
Todd Furniss, the book he's talking about is his own book called The 60% Solution, Rethinking Healthcare. Todd, really important moment to be talking about this topic. Thanks very much for joining me today.